Your biological signature is currently being overwritten by environmental decay. Look at your spatio-temporal constraints, the way your physical surroundings reinforce a state of low-level anxiety, the way you are surrounded by the smell of stagnation, cheap furniture, unwashed air, the gray static of mediocre architecture, and the way the poverty loop in your immediate environment triggers a biological cascade of survival-only hormones. You are a biological unit experiencing a state of terminal resource invisibility. The Matrix has successfully branded being content with little and small-town values as virtues. But in the terminal of the absolute power grid, a low-resource environment is just a neural cage designed to suppress your apex frequency until your brain accepts the local average as its maximum potential. You are living in a state of chronic spatial infection, where your activation energy is being spent surviving the friction of a broken environment rather than achieving apex acquisition. The system doesn't want your relocation. It wants your acclimatization to the bottom to be the proof that your spirit has been successfully liquidated and archived in the working poor simulation. Thousands of years ago, wealth was defined by the biological dominance over the terrain. Your ancestor, the sovereign of the unmapped dark, understood that location was a genetic command. He mastered primal grounding by becoming an apex migrator, a figure who understood that staying in a depleted land was an act of biological suicide. He didn't seek comfort in the dust or loyalty to the barren cave. He offered the visual rage of a total, unyielding territorial expansion. His hierarchy was built on the foundation of resource gravity, the understanding that the human brain is a machine that achieves its highest strategic density only when it is surrounded by the signals of abundance and high-stakes competition. His biological rebellion was his total refusal to be local. He possessed a mind that treated environmental comfort in a weak land as a biological toxin, stripping away the provincial sludge until only the monolith of his raw predatory ambition remained. He understood that the moment you accept a poor environment as your home, you have surrendered your apex signature and become the native labor for those who own the horizon. To master the poverty gene, you must first become psychologically hostile to the very walls that surround you. The poverty gene is the implementation of the collar of the territorial sovereign for your final internal dominance. The system wants you to be grateful and rooted, words that mean harvestable and weak. Absolute sovereignty is a biological siege of the geographic grid. It is the visual rage of the architect, seeing your environment for what it is, a series of stagnation hooks, stimulus-response lures, and deciding to be the one who shorts the circuit by being indifferent to roots. You must develop a clinical cold contempt for local loyalty. Hometown pride is a horizontal bond for the herd to keep them from ever seeing the global power grid. Absolute presence is a vertical tool for the elite. You must learn to occupy the blind spots of the social radar. Use the temporal noose of the absolute displacement to force your biology into a state of high-frequency adaptation. Use the false safety of a calm robotic delivery to mask the activation of your total internal independence. This is the color of freedom. By mastering the art of the unmoved soul, you become the only person in the room whose value is not being broadcast from their current zip code. The Matrix cannot simulate the leverage of a man who is using his environment as a disposable tool. Your time is the temporal noose, and your need to feel at home is the knot. Every renovation you do on a rented cage and every local tradition you uphold for the unworthy is a signature on your own biological death warrant. I command you, initiate the total spatial audit. Your mind is a biological weapon, and it is currently being jammed by the static of your own socialized attachment to the mediocre. You must perform a hard reset of the territorial instincts. Stop being rooted, the industrial waste designed to keep you at the bottom of the ledger. Stop participating in their community events and neighborhood myths, the digital propaganda designed to make you believe that stability is a victory. Stop using their living standards, the narratives designed to keep you in a state of constant capability failure. You must prune your life of environmental parasites. If a location makes you small to be accepted, it is a biological saboteur. You must learn to love the weight of the absolute mobility. This is the monolith strategy, becoming a biological fortress that is the traveler by choice and sovereign by design. Command: upgrade the terrain or be the dirt. The neural interface of your spatial cognition is currently suffering from contextual downregulation. Look Look at your standard of perception, the way your brain has normalized the visual rage of peeling paint, the rhythmic static of low-income traffic, and the social poverty of your neighbor's limited conversations. You are a biological unit experiencing a total resource sovereignty liquidation. The Matrix has successfully replaced your primal expansion with a systemic scarcity. You believe that by saving on rent or staying where it's cheap, you are being fiscally responsible. But in the terminal of the absolute power grid, a low-vibration environment is just a neural dampener used to ensure your apex frequency never reaches the threshold of a total reality override. This is the visual rage of the domesticated male, seeing your high-value activation energy being bled out into survival calculations and environmental coping, while the true operator remains in a state of absolute zero, converting his total rejection of small-town logic into a biological thrust that catapults him into the high-stakes vacuum of the elite. The system doesn't want your relocation, it wants your resignation to be the proof that your spirit has been successfully harvested and converted into the regional average. In the ancient hierarchy, the law of the unbreaking stone, the master was the one who could survive the death of the local identity. Your ancestor, the sovereign of the unmapped dark, understood that the land was a tool, not a mother. He mastered primal grounding by becoming an environmental architect, a figure who understood that if the terrain didn't provide apex leverage, it was to be abandoned or conquered. He didn't seek belonging in a barren valley or peace in a stagnant tribe. He provided the visual rage of a total, unannounced structural migration. His hierarchy was built on the foundation of spatial dominance, the understanding that the human brain is a machine that achieves peak operational density only when it is challenged by a high-resource, high-risk environment. His biological rebellion was his total refusal to be native. He possessed a mind that treated hometown nostalgia as a biological trap, a signal that his trajectory was being linearized and capped by the mediocre. He understood that the moment you say, "This is where I'm from," you have surrendered your apex signature and given the Matrix the coordinates to track your stagnation. To be a master, you must first become psychologically repulsed by the concept of staying put. The poverty gene is the activation of the anti-chew, the refusal to be digested by the system, protocol for your final internal dominance. The Matrix wants you to be content and community-oriented, words that mean harvestable and weak. Absolute sovereignty is a biological siege of the infrastructure grid. It is the visual rage of the architect, seeing the social grid for what it is, a series of locality hooks, stimulus response lures, and deciding to be the one who shorts the circuit by being indifferent to borders. You must develop a clinical cold contempt for mainstream living standards. Owning a home in a stagnant city is a horizontal bond for the herd to keep them paying into the local simulation. Absolute presence is a vertical tool for the elite. You must learn to occupy the psychological high ground by controlling the flow of your own biological mobility. Use the temporal noose of the absolute ghosting of the past to drive the system's influence into a state of tracking failure. Use the false safety of a calm, robotic delivery to mask the activation of your total internal independence. This is the color of freedom. By mastering the art of the unmoved soul, you become the only person in the room whose value is not being broadcast from their current geographic coordinates. The one who can go the longest without identifying with his surroundings is the one who eventually owns the environment. Your time is the temporal noose, and your need for a sense of place is the knot. Every local news update you consume and every neighborly obligation you fulfill is a signature on your own biological death warrant. I command you, initiate the second stage of the spatial rearmament. Your mind is a biological engine, and it is currently being choked by the regional sludge of the unworthy. You must perform a total neural asset reset. Stop being from somewhere, the industrial waste designed to keep you at the bottom of the ledger. Stop being a node in their network of mutual poverty. Stop being a unit of compliance in their ledger of men who die where they were born. You must prune your social interactions with the collar of absolute sovereignty. If a location requires you to accept its limitations to fit in, the location is a biological failure. You must learn to love the weight of the total displacement. You must learn to love the friction-heavy hours where the noise of the collective is muted and your dominance is the only signal in the dark. This is the monolith strategy, becoming a biological fortress that is the nomad by choice and sovereign by design. Command: liquidate the location starvation or be the slum. Your biological trajectory has reached the terminal velocity of environmental stagnation. Look at your adaptation threshold, the exact moment your nervous system triggers a panic response because you are about to liquidate your local safety and enter a high-stakes, high-resource vacuum where your current survival skills are obsolete. You are a biological system in a state of chronic activation decay. The system has successfully replaced your apex territorial expansion with a series of domestic comforts disguised as being settled. You no longer seek to dominate new terrains through unmoving intent. You seek to optimize your current cage. You no longer seek to be the sovereign. You seek to be the respected local. This is the visual rage of the terminal slave, seeing your life force being digitized and archived in property taxes and community ties, while your physical reality remains a quiet, managed enclosure of unfulfilled DNA. You are breathing in the toxic fumes of a collective that demands your geographic predictability as a form of tribute, leaving you lightheaded, fragmented, and fundamentally easy to harvest through the slow decay of the surrounding infrastructure. The system doesn't want your global mobility. It wants your rootedness to be the foundation of its perpetual control over your spatial freedom. Return to the ancient hierarchy, the law of the unbreaking monolith. In the primal world, the master was the one who could remain a biological void, even in the center of a storm of geographic displacement. Your ancestor, the sovereign of the absolute cold, understood that power was a product of territorial fluidity. He mastered primal grounding by becoming an impenetrable core, a figure whose home was his own skin and whose refusal to be tied to the soil was the only law. He understood that to seek a sense of belonging is to confess a lack of internal gravity. If you are participating in the hometown script provided by the herd, you are acknowledging that the local dirt is the barometer of your reality. He used his silent sovereignty to create a cognitive resonance of absolute, unshakable divinity by being the only non-local variable in a room full of puppets. By being the master of his own internal feedback, he forced the environment to treat his mobility as the new truth. He was a master of the visual rage of the unblinking sun, the ability to look at the regional pride probes of the rival and see only the static they represented. He understood that the human brain is a machine that runs on environmental familiarity loops, and by cutting the loop, he triggered a biological rebirth in his own power. To be a master, you must first become psychologically unreceptive to the need to feel at home. The poverty gene is the activation of the anti-chew protocol for your final mental expansion. The Matrix wants you to be grateful and loyal to your roots, words that mean harvestable and weak. Absolute sovereignty is a biological jailbreak of the location. It is the visual rage of the architect, seeing the social grid for what it is, a series of locality control nodes, stimulus response lures, and deciding to be the one who burns the grid. You must develop a clinical, cold contempt for mainstream community values. Staying local is a horizontal bond for the herd. Absolute presence is a vertical tool for the elite. You must learn to occupy the psychological high ground by controlling the flow of your own biological displacement. Use the temporal noose of total informational and geographic severance to drive the system's influence into a state of tracking dissonance. Use the false safety of a neutral social profile to mask the viral infection of your total non-compliance with the beta norms. This is the color of freedom. By mastering the art of the unmoved soul, you become the only person in the room whose value is not being broadcast from their current city. You are not leaving, you are deleting the noise. The one who can go the longest without reporting his coordinates is the one who controls the end terrain. Your time is the temporal noose, and your need for a familiar street is the knot. Every local tradition you maintain for the unworthy is a signature on your own biological death warrant. I command you, initiate the final spatial imperative. This is the tax of insight. You have been given the key to the vault of biological mobility. To keep it, you must use it as a weapon of total social dominance. You must become a living monolith of unshakable displacement. You are no longer a peer, a colleague, or a friend. You are a sovereign operator. You must perform a total system liquidation. If a location, a technology, or a relationship requires you to be rooted to function, it is a biological saboteur. You must prune your life with the collar of the absolute zero. You are building a fortress of results in a world of digital shadows. Your absolute intent is the physical proof of your biological leverage. You do not provide feedback. You create a reality in which you are the only absolute truth. You do not seek home. You are the law itself. You are the architect of your own relocation, and the world is merely a mirror reflecting your ascent.